So Rick, where are the specific security requirements found that companies need to follow to be in compliance with DFARS and CMMC?
Great question. They are found in the NIST SP 800-171. That contains 110 requirements that have to be met in order to protect the CUI, the controlled unclassified information that the government wants you to protect. The 110 controls are basically a one, maybe two sentence statement. For example, 3.1.18 says control connection of mobile devices. And again, in 3.2.1 it says ensure personnel are trained to carry out their assigned information security related duties and responsibilities. So you have this requirement, and in some sense it's a little ambiguous because it doesn't tell you how to apply that control. It doesn't tell you what you need to put in place as far as technology is concerned, nor does it give you an indication of what the assessor is going to look for. So there's a lot left to interpret here.
So like we said earlier, NIST 800-171 is very vague. Rick, can you tell us, like you were alluding to earlier, where companies can find more details on what's required and what assessors will look for?
Sure. That would be in a document titled NIST SP 800-171A.
Okay.
That is where we get a little bit more information, and in fact that's where the assessors get some of their information for doing an assessment. Now, the interesting thing about this is that they take those 110 controls and then they break them up into sub sections, which we would call the assessment objectives, and there's 320 of those. So each one of the 110 have multiple sections. So if we go back to our example where we were looking at the 3.1.18, you'll be able to see in that example it has the statement, control connection of mobile devices. And then they have an A, B, and C, which breaks that down into a little bit more information. So we're talking about, in the A, mobile devices that process, store, and transmit CUI that are identified. Mobile devices in B talk about those that are authorized. So we have identified, authorized, and then C, it says mobile devices connections are monitored and logged. So not only do we have to identify them, authorize them, we have to monitor the activity associated with that. So it kind of breaks down that sentence that we had earlier into components that you can audit, assess, if you will. And then there is the method that the assessors would use. Comes in three parts. It's the examine, interview, and test. So there's three ways that they can look at this control to determine whether or not you're meeting that control or you're not meeting it. So an examine might be, I would look at some of the policies or procedures associated with this. When I'm looking at interview, I would be interviewing an individual to see if they understand what the requirement is. Testing might be having a mobile device that is not being authorized being attached to your network. So that's kind of a test that it shouldn't be able to connect to your network. So those are some possible ways that an assessor would look at this particular control. If you go to another example that we have, that would be the, let's see, let me go, the 3.2.2, which is dealing with training. Once again, that says ensure that personnel are trained to carry out their assigned information security related duties and responsibilities. Once again, a little vague. So what they do is they look at this and break it down into three components, A, B, and C again. and it says information security related duties, roles, and responsibilities are defined. So we're defining those. The B talks about the responsibilities, roles, and responsibilities are assigned to the designated person. So we're assigning those. And then once again, we're making sure that the training was adequate for them.
Yeah.
So then we keep going, we go through that step again, examine, interview, test, and it follows that same scenario. Who do we talk to? What records can I examine? And, the testing aspect, maybe it's, have you gone through some testing? Where's that pass-fail record?
Yeah.
So if I don't complete a training, does it show up on my record that it's not completed? So some possible ways that they would handle that as they move forward in this scenario here.
Yeah.
Hey, X, would you put that last screen back up, the one on 3.2.2? I wanted to point something out for those who are in the session who've done ISO auditing in the past, internal auditing or something. You'll pick up on something that can be a clue on how to do an assessment. Rick pointed out, if you go back to English grammar class, you would look for the verbs in the sentence, right? So that first one says defined, then assigned, and then adequately trained would be the verbs in those three sentences. So if you were an ISO auditor and you were auditing an ISO standard or this standard, you would put the word how in front of those verbs and you'd make a question. So how are those, in this case, training duties, roles, responsibilities defined? How are they assigned to people? And how are people adequately trained? So it kind of brings you past the words into action and gives you a way to interview, if you're going to use that test, to dig in. And I think you can use the actual words in that document as a great aid. Yeah. Now, there's another document that's really helpful that even takes it a step further if you want more practical examples, because this is still a little bit high level. And that's called the CMMC Assessment Guide. Now, that document is not published by NIST. It's actually published by the Department of Defense. And I believe it is. Rick, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but it's not a NIST document. I know that. And it's called an assessment guide. And we can put a screenshot of that up. I think we were going to do that next. Nope, maybe in a bit. But it kind of is a companion to 171A, but it digs in further. So it spells out what documents you might need to see, what you might need to observe, what demonstrations you might need to have. And I think the key part of that guide, which is also used by CMMC assessors, is that it says that the controls are either met, not met, or not applicable. There's only three possibilities. Let's take not applicable off the table because I think that's going to be rare. So either it's met or it's not met. And what that means is you have to demonstrate that all of the assessment objectives for that requirement are in fact in place in order to call it met. So you can't get 2 out of 3. It's not a majority. You don't get to grade on a curve. It's basically 100% of those pieces have to be in place in order for you to consider that control to be met. And to me, that's a big eye opener for a lot of people because they might read quickly over the one sentence and say, "Oh, we have training, no problem."
Yeah.
Well, that's not what they're really asking. They're asking more than that. So you got to dig in.
Yeah. Wow, that grading sounds pretty tough.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. This is part of a longer series on DFARS, NIST, and CMMC compliance produced by Core Business Solutions. Please subscribe to this channel, like this video with a thumbs up, and click the bell to get notified when we drop a new video. Also, we'd appreciate it if you would share this video with your colleagues who need to stay up to speed on DFARS, NIST, and CMMC. Thank you, and we'll see you again in the next video.